When I was 7 years old, my dad told my brother and I that this year for Christmas, he was working on a special gift for us. Yeah, check out that haircut. My brother had style. Now, he told us this in the middle of summer, so I had the better half of a year to dream about what this mysterious gift might be. My 7-year-old imagination erupted. I dreamed up buckets of candy, custom Lego castles, a new Razor scooter, or maybe even a dinosaur. I knew they were extinct, but according to Jurassic Park logic, it wasn't that hard to recreate one. So when Christmas morning finally came, I bolted to the living room. And the first thing I noticed was that Dad's special gift was smaller than I had imagined. But that was okay. A tiny package could equal huge rewards. I remember ripping off the bow, wrestling free the paper, prying open the box, and holding up my very own brand new book. I had waited for half a year for a book. Now, he had written the thing himself, but I was still 7, and it was still a book. I mean, at least you can wear socks, but this thing, it didn't even have pictures. And that moment as I flipped through my holiday disappointment, I was hit by an onslaught of emotions. I felt lied to, misled, betrayed. I was promised one thing and given another. All of you have probably felt this way too after being clickbaited by an article. Unfortunately, the public has come to associate journalism with the feeling of a disappointed kid on Christmas. As sensational article titles have been on the rise, the public's confidence in legitimate reporting has declined. This college student got invited to a TEDx talk. What happens next will shock you. We need to talk about clickbait. Clickbait are the batteries that you buy at the Dollar Tree. You know it's a risk, but you do it anyway. It plays on that little kid inside all of us that wants to believe that The Bachelor isn't polygamy and that Marvel movies aren't getting progressively worse. So you click on that article expecting to read about a dad coming home from the military, but you get an ad for Clash of Clans instead. And then the article doesn't even deliver. But it doesn't matter. The company already got you to view an advertisement, so it won. You see, at its heart, clickbait is not journalism. It's a marketing scheme. In fact, in 2017, Bozuma reported that the most watched articles were the ones that had the words "will make you" and "what happened next" in their titles. So in 2015, BuzzFeed News even said that headline writing has long been considered a skill, but in the digital age, one word has become synonymous with online journalism: clickbait. You see, the solution to this problem is separating the overlap between journalism and advertising. Let's talk about the real definition of clickbait. First, you should know that this marketing method is so popular that in 2015, Merriam-Webster added it to their dictionary, defining it as something such as a headline designed to make readers want to click a hyperlink, especially when the link leads to content of dubious value or interest. So, at the end of the day, clickbait should not influence or affect the definition of journalism. And speaking of clickbait, let's talk about keeping things separate. Traditionally, the expectation applied towards bias is that the two should never cross. And I'd argue that the definition of clickbait actually overlaps into areas like YouTube and blog posts since they have infiltrated more clickable content. So, back to the area of bias. Traditionally, the expectation is that bias and journalism should never, ever cross. In other words, the best type of reporting would be bias that is non-existent. Not only is this expectation impossible, it's also potentially unhealthy. According to the American Press Institute, they said that the job of a journalist is not to stamp out bias. Rather, the journalist should learn how to manage it. To ask a journalist to eliminate their bias is also to ask them to eliminate their culture, background, experiences, and how those things interplay into their reporting. So the solution for bad bias for journalists is actually pretty simple. We need to follow the rules. We simply need to start following the code of conduct that's already been laid out for us by the SPJ. But most of you in the audience are not journalists, so how can you cultivate healthy bias? The most powerful tool that you have is your voice. Engage with quality content and boycott bad reporting. As a society, it's important to keep in mind that every time the media publishes an article, we are making a value statement. So, if USA Today reports on Kanye West's love affair with himself, then we as a community are saying that this information is valuable, even if we hate the information that's being given. Much of our frustration as news consumers comes from the fact that modern media isn't answering our value questions. Questions like, who are we? Why are we here? And what's the point are rattling around in our minds constantly. So, based on these standards, what makes a good journalist? It's actually pretty simple. A fantastic journalist has the audience in mind when they decide what to report and how to report on it. The Gospel of Luke serves as a great example for this. Now, most of you know that the Bible is the best-selling book of nonfiction of all time, but I'll wager that few of you consider it a source for legitimate reporting. However, the book of Luke is just that. Luke was a man who lived during Jesus' day, and he had a very specific set of beliefs. Luke believed that humans were deeply flawed, that Jesus was fully God and fully man, and that he died to eliminate the separation between people and God. He also believed that Jesus rose from the dead. Furthermore, he held the conviction that anyone who would trust in Jesus for the pardon of their mistakes would be made right with God. Now notice that what Luke addresses talks about a lot of the value questions that typical audiences crave, namely, who are we and what's the point? Second, Luke was writing to a very specific audience. If you read through the book of Luke, you'll find that he was writing to a man named Theophilus. Now, not only is that a ridiculous name, he was actually a real person. And if you read through Luke chapter 1, verses 3 and 4, it says this: having investigated everything from the beginning, I also have decided to write an accurate account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so you may be certain of the truth of everything that you were taught. So was Luke biased in his reporting of the life or the events surrounding Jesus' life? Absolutely. But he wielded his bias in an appropriate way because he cared about who would be receiving his message. This example makes me wonder, what kind of impact can quality writing have? Personally, my journalistic perspective was shaped by a 25-cent stamp. When I was a senior in high school, I had a very short op-ed piece published in the Gainesville Sun. And inside, I talked about how 2016 would have an extra second and what I would do with this extra time. It was a short, pithy, offhanded article, and I didn't think much of it, not until one of my readers wrote me a letter. A lady named Doris wrote me a note, and inside attached a copy of my article, and she said that one line I had written, which said, "Stop planning and start doing," spoke to her heart. In that moment, I realized that people I will never meet can be challenged and inspired by my writing. Also in that moment, Doris became the best example of what every great audience member should be doing. She engaged with writing, and she let the writer know what she thought about it. At the end of the day, journalism all comes back to Christmas morning. We all know what it's like to get a bad gift, and hopefully we know what it's like to get a great gift too. The best type of reporting captures that magical childhood moment when the gift giver gets it right. And all of us have a say in making that magic a reality. Let's repair the reputation of journalism together. It's only one great gift away. Thank you.